Christina Culver. I am from Salem Township. Common sense. I hear these words used a lot in this room. Common sense is defined as the ability to think and behave in a reasonable way and to make good decisions. So let's take a look at policies 216 and 719 and see if they actually make common sense. Central Bucks District spent over $1 million to fight the ACLU and $1.5 million on legal and public relation fees when they passed the same policies. Is it reasonable to put our district in legal and financial jeopardy when there is another Pennsylvania school who paid dearly for doing the same thing? I am sure that my fellow taxpayers won't be happy if our taxes are raised again due to policies that we don't even need. I know these policies weren't written by you, as I trace them back to a far-right law firm that encourages districts to enact policies that harm queer kids, although that isn't their mission. Their real mission is to sow discord in schools, which, wow, that's working, so they can undermine the very fabric of public education. Our queer kids are just collateral damage. They don't care if we get sued because the real purpose behind these policies is to dismantle public education so they can weasel in school vouchers, which will destroy our public schools. Teachers shouldn't have to worry about all this nonsense, I hear. I agree, as that is exactly how our school functions now. Policy 216 will instead police every word that comes out of their mouth. Your policy will force teachers to support their students to choose that or follow the rules. It is therefore reasonable to assume that this policy will cost us some excellent, caring teachers, ones that our district absolutely cannot lose. Research has shown that trans children who are rejected have a 57% rate of suicide. Trans kids who are supported, the percentage is 4%. Should it not be common sense that protecting the lives of our students is the most important thing to consider? I have heard it said many times that it is common sense for schools to focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic. We know that these policies will have a negative impact on the mental health of so many of our kids. I would think it would go without saying, but it is a lot harder to teach a depressed child. But I can tell you, it is impossible to teach a dead one. I implore you, use your common sense. Protect our children. Their lives are depending on it. Thank you.
My name is Allison Smith. I live in Berwick Township. I'm a business owner and mother of 3 children, one of which is currently a student in the district. It's the start of the new school year, with that comes all the paperwork, emergency forms listing who's allowed to have access to our children, health forms with potentially life-threatening allergies, social media releases, all some pretty serious and important stuff. This year we were able to complete them electronically from the comfort of our home. While signing these electronically, the school district has no idea who actually completed these forms. Yet here we are trying to pass a policy that requires a handwritten note to be delivered in person simply for the use of a preferred name and pronoun. If that doesn't tell us that this is a direct outing of trans students, I don't know what does. Let's be abundantly transparent. Those in favor of passing these anti-LGBTQ+ policies are basing their reasoning to do so solely on religious beliefs. It has been made incredibly obvious. Let us be reminded that we live in a country that gives us the constitutional right of freedom of religion. Our country was built upon the freedom of religion and the separation of church and state. It is incredibly hypocritical and selfish to think that only Christians should have their traditional values represented in our schools with zero regard for anyone else's values or lifestyle. If parents want Christian and traditional values taught to their children, there are private schools available to do so. You can't ask that teachers only teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, yet also want Christian values upheld. That is unfair and incredibly hypocritical. By using preferred names and pronouns requested by students who are simply respecting another human being. As stated by other community members, you have no problem calling James Jim or Peter Pete. This concept isn't any different. The only difference is that you're picking and choosing what applies to whom based on your personal agendas, which is in fact discriminatory. You don't get to pick and choose who freedom belongs to in the United States of America. If your religion believes that there are only 2 genders and anything else is a sin, that's your business. No one is forcing your child to be transgender simply by respecting another child's preferred name. Your religion is not an excuse to disrespect or discriminate against other human beings. If you pass these policies and any of our LGBTQ+ students in this district are harmed, whether by themselves or others, I want you to remember that you facilitated this. As far as your bathroom and locker room policies and insisting that your daughters aren't safe, let me remind you that all of the women I know, myself included, who have been sexually harassed, assaulted, or worse, have fallen victim to cisgendered males, not transgender males. If you pass these policies, you're not protecting protecting students, you're protecting your political and religious agenda, and that is indoctrination. That is discrimination, and that is not protecting all students. That's only protecting students you deem as worthy that fit in your box, which is the largest form of adult bullying children that I have ever seen. I strongly urge you to reconsider. Thank you.
My name is Heather Schrader. I'm a resident in Berwick, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of the transgender and gender diverse youth in our schools. These students deserve what every child deserves, the right to learn in safety with dignity and respect. Yet for too many trans youth, this isn't their reality. They're more likely to be bullied, harassed, or assaulted simply because of who they are. They face higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. These are children in our school who are most at risk, yet they cause the least harm. Trans kids are not a danger to their classmates, they are vulnerable, and they need our protection. At our last meeting, I listened to a woman say that she hates the term deadening and that it breaks her heart. But she never mentioned the real heartbreak, the statistics of LGBTQ children who died because they were rejected, erased, or stripped of dignity. The word deadening may make some uncomfortable, but let's be clear, it's not nearly as uncomfortable as a child's funeral. This is the true cost when schools fail to protect these kids. And beyond compassion, let's talk about reality. What does it look like if a tall girl or a masculine presenting girl or an intersex student walks into a restroom? Do we even know the difference between intersex and trans? Do we want adults interrogating children about their body parts before using the bathroom? Not only is that humiliating and unsafe, this opens the district up to future and constant lawsuits for harassment, discrimination, and violations of civil rights. This path doesn't protect children, it endangers them, all of them, and it endangers this district legally and financially. Public schools are for everyone. They do not exist to enforce a group's personal beliefs at the expense of another child's safety. If a parent wants to impose their own narrow narrative, then they have the option of private schools. But public schools must remain inclusive because they belong to all of us. When you vote, I ask that you remember that these are not abstract policies. These are real children sitting in our classrooms right now. By affirming protections for transgender youth, you are not giving them special rights. You are giving them the same rights that every student deserves to belong, to be safe, and to learn. 4 quick points. Trans kids aren't asking for special treatment. They're asking to survive long enough to graduate. It's the literal bare minimum that we owe them. If adults can't handle being uncomfortable with a word or term, how can we expect children to handle being unsafe in their own schools? Public schools are for every child. If we can't make room for the most vulnerable, then we failed absolutely all of them. Trans youth are the most at risk, and yet they cause the least harm. The real danger is not their existence, it's our silence. I'd like to know how you're determining which policies are chosen and put on the agenda, because it certainly is not what our kids need. Thank you.
I'll go. Before I start though, I just want to say that I have low vision, and so I really depend upon my hearing to know what's going on around me, and it's really disheartening that you're still not using microphones. And I know I have really good hearing, and I'm straining to hear what you're saying. And I know there are people around me that are really struggling with hearing. This is a public meeting. Good evening. My name is Jill Freeman, and I'm from the borough. In our district of fewer than 3,000 students, if we do the math and we apply the national statistic of 1% of the population being transgender, we're talking about fewer than 30 kids, probably closer to a handful. This is not a trans pandemic. This is a very small number of vulnerable students. The proposed policies about names and bathrooms may sound like just small administrative details, but research shows that they can cause real harm. A 2018 study in the Journal of Adolescent Health found that trans youth who could use their chosen name in schools had 71% fewer symptoms of severe depression, 34% decrease in suicidal thoughts, and a 65% decrease in suicide attempts compared to those denied that respect. Denying a student their preferred name is in standard setting. It increased risks. Bathroom restrictions are another danger point. According to Glesson's 2021 National School Climate Survey, nearly 70% of transgender students were prevented in one way or another from using bathrooms that matched their gender identity, and those students reported significantly higher levels of anxiety, absenteeism, and harassment, and physical issues like UTIs, urinary tract infections, because being harassed about the bathroom you use tends to make kids hold it, which isn't healthy. Meanwhile, here's what I'm hearing from our students. I've spoken with roughly a dozen kids in this district. Every single one of them has experienced bullying. Not one of them said they cared what name a trans kid goes by or which bathroom they use. What they do care about is being safe from constant bullying, harassment, and intimidation. And none of them thought that this board cared one lick about that. We have a bullying problem in this district, not a trans problem. So if this board wants to make real impact, the energy should go toward bullying prevention, not policing identities.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Bednar. I live in Hollenbach Township. My son attends school here. My two smaller ones will also come here because so far I'm pretty happy with this district, although I hear ups and downs. Everyone has it. I was not able to go to the previous meeting, but at home I watched the video twice. I noticed a couple supporters seem to back their policy with their Christian faith. Well, those of different faiths or no faith at all can be given the same consideration. As a proud pagan mother, I could wax on about gender, fluidity, transformation for very long, but I need much more than 3 minutes to do that, and probably a TED Talk stage. I naturally find it actually even more morally reprehensible to do something as personal as my spirituality, to impose rules and regulations on my community. This is a public school, after all, and frankly, my mother just raised me that way. It's also extremely difficult for a person who studies this kind of history to sit back and watch a whole group of people be vilified and scapegoated. Historically, it never, ever ends well. On a more personal note, when I was in high school, my best friend came out as transgender. This was in 2005, and way before anyone can claim it was a social media trend. To be honest, I didn't even know what being trans meant, but after a brief explanation, I gave him a hug and said, cool, let's go grab an Annie and pretzel, which again is just how I was raised. Over the years, I've met so many wonderful people of the transgender community, each and every one of them a positive and beautiful influence on my life. For those who support these policies, I'm curious to know how many people of the trans community do you know personally? Have you listened to their stories over coffee? How have they impacted your life? At the last meeting, people spoke of logic. Not too long ago, bloodletting was considered a logical practice. Many people spoke of tradition, but failed to notice that the traditions that last are the ones that are adaptable. So many people are eager to inform us about what happened, quote unquote, back in my day. Well, sorry to inform you this, but this is no longer your day. It is no longer even my day. The children who attend this school, who deserve to grow and shape their futures with dignity and respect, it is their day. As adults, we have a moral obligation to make it a brighter day, a safer day, and a day better than all of those days that came before us. Thank you.
And I'm sure you can guess what I came today to speak about. I have quite a few concerns. Firstly, I read through your policies. The first one discusses consciousness rights, which is kind of a legal term that refers to a doctor's right to, like, for example, like a Catholic hospital can say something like, we don't want to perform abortions here, and that's their right, but it's much more of a medical term than it does apply to, like, teaching But furthermore, it was saying that like you were violating teachers' consciousness rights by requesting that they would use the student's preferred name or pronouns. And your alternative is to continue to violate their consciousness rights by asking them to use a completely different third set of pronouns, which is entirely humorous, and I'm not talking about they, them. Your policy specifically encourages teachers who don't feel like using gendered pronouns to refer to the student as you. And I just don't feel like that's a very appropriate way for a student to speak, or for a teacher to speak to a student. I feel like I would feel very insulted if my teacher just pointed at me and yelled, "You!" That's pretty insulting, right? And furthermore, it doesn't solve the issue of consciousness rights, right? Because it doesn't mean that they can say what they want. It means they can say what you want them to say, right? It doesn't really solve the problem. And furthermore, I would like to implore you to consider that the children who attend this school district are more than children. They're human people. And they have identities, and they're allowed to explore them because they're humans just like you and I. And truth be told, we have no idea how long any of us are going to be on planet Earth, right?
Yes.
Are you going to tell somebody who feels like their whole life they would rather have just tried something, right? Like, I wish I had just expressed myself as who I was. I wish I had just done what I wanted to do, right? Some people in this room are probably going to go home, they're going to say, I wish I spoke up, right? And for trans people, it's the same. I wish I expressed myself. Would you deny these children the autonomy and opportunity to express themselves? They're humans just like you. I mean, I don't feel like I need to get into how, bureaucratic these policies are as well. I mean, one of them encourages for the multi-student use facilities that a gym teacher would have students change, then close down the entire changing room for 1 or 2 trans students to change, then bring all of the students out. I mean, that's like an extra, 15, 20 minutes, right? Don't you guys want your students to learn? Or are you way more concerned with this kind of political crap? Give your students autonomy. I'm begging you. I yield my time.
Berwick, Borough. First, I want to say proposing this nonsensical policy is incredibly embarrassing. Does any one of the board members know the attempt rates of the minorities you all are attacking? It's 10% for LGBTQ plus ages 13 to 24 in our state alone. 12% of the transgender, non-binary young people reported their attempt rates. That's the facts I asked for you in your last meeting. Fine, still don't care. 7.3 for all students in our Columbia County. That is 1 in 14. And that was only grades 6, 8, and 10. This was through PA Youth Survey, which you can find on pa.gov. Same study revealed that 18.8 seriously considered and 15.7 actually made a plan. You banned flags, but 17 days later, Germany passed something called a landmark law called the Self-Determination Act. This allowed name and gender marker changes via simple declaration, no court, no evaluation, 14 plus minors were needed family court or parental approval. Cited straight from our Library of Congress. Look at me, for I am the representation of queer youth, and I am no monster like made out to be by most. Sorry that I may scare some, sorry that my friends may scare some of you. But hey, maybe I'll just go as myself for Halloween.
I'm speaking about policy 216.2 on student records and policy 719 on multi-user privacy facilities. I've been following this topic of accommodations and policies for trans and LGBTQ kids for a while now. Whether or not someone believes that being trans is real or not, we should all be able to agree that these kids are real. And these kids are dying. According to the Trevor Project, in 2024, half of all transgender kids seriously considered suicide versus 39% of all LGBTQ kids. and 14% of their straight peers. What reduces these attempts by a significant amount, again shown by research, is having at least one accepting adult in the school or the home. So identifying one counselor, even one already on staff, to be the one that they go to talk to when they have been bullied or discriminated against would be extremely helpful. It could even save a life. Having access to gender-affirming bathrooms makes a difference. Being referred to by gender-affirming names and pronouns makes a difference. Bullying happens to 52% of LGBTQ kids, and even more trans kids in middle and high schools. Bullied kids are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide. So counteracting what happens in your hallways by having at least that one accepting person on staff and having all teachers look for bullying and dealing with it is the right thing to do. Keeping kids safe is part of that job. Helping them to do their job by addressing at least this one issue of bullying and acceptance is important. Kids' lives depend on it. How is the Berwick School Board determining these policies that get on the agenda? What is the process by which these policies are chosen? When is there any public discussion or debate on any of them? These are real concerns of the constituents of this district, and we deserve answers. You're making decisions that impact the teachers, the parents, and the students in a manner that keeps us all in the dark. Berwick deserves better than that, and vulnerable kids' lives may very well depend on it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Claudia Glenn in Salem Township. I strongly object to the blatant anti-transgender and LGBTQAI policies being pushed through this board without conscientious critique and discussion, though my following comments and questions are concerning board practices, standard practices. Per Robert's Rules of Order, a quote consent agenda may group routine, non-controversial items and place them into a single agenda item for a quick, unanimous approval with one vote. I submit that this rule is being violated by combining the agenda policy 000 through 719 for a single vote when it is clear controversial policies are included. These policies are not being discussed in a robust way for having such an impact on our district and our children. The public should also be informed on how the BSADA board committees are established. What is the guidance for how many members are on a committee, aside from the number that would constitute a quorum? Isn't the board president an ex officio committee member? That means non-voting, thus making the BSADA policy committee effectively a committee of one, and that one whose children are not enrolled in the district. How are potential policy directives delivered to the policy committee for proposal in writing? What is the process deciding and moving forward on the need for and the creation of new or revised policies? What are the standards and practices for researching and creating policies? How are they drafted? What resources does the committee rely upon? Do they consult and work with the administration, staff, professionals, and subject matter experts to ensure the best physical and psychological environment for our children? Furthermore, in my reading of the Sunshine Act and the PA Department of Education guidelines, any meetings conducted without the use of microphones or other means by which the public can follow discussions, comments, and votes is a violation and does not provide accessibility to everyone. These policies often conflict with the Pennsylvania Human Rights Act, which prohibits sex-based discrimination, including gender identity. The ACLU of Pennsylvania has opposed these policies, filing lawsuits against districts like Central Bucks and Red Lion. I have a copy with me tonight of a letter sent to the school board today from the Education Law Center outlining their concerns for these policies. In conclusion, this board is taking the views of a portion of the community and applying them to 100% of the students and faculty, thus creating rules that require some individuals to be treated differently. The safety and health of our children is at stake. I don't believe that someone with different beliefs requires my understanding or acceptance of their beliefs for them to exist as our children.
So good evening, members of the school board. Thank you for everything you do and the work that you do for our community students. May I ask you guys a question? When you were voted in to be the school board, did you have to take an oath? Okay, well. Anyway, you clearly show that you don't respect the Constitution and the 14th Amendment. But I bet you respect the Second Amendment. When that's brought up, if it's just one student that needs help, isn't that enough? I can see through you. You're just pushing your own ideologies, which would be your own agenda, like Miss May had stated at the last meeting. It makes total sense. You're just too stuck in your own ways and totally unwilling to open your mind. It's a power grab. Doesn't fit your traditional ways of life like you've always known. You're unfamiliar because you don't know and it possibly scares you. I don't know, something, you have some kind of issue with it. It's no reason to completely disregard a child's life because of your own morals or lack thereof. I thought you were for all the children. This doesn't seem like it's for all the children. In a way, it's kind of a way I see bullying from policies. I don't know. Anyway, it's in different ways being a bully. Adults being bullies in different ways. It's not everyone, it's just ones to a specific group. Specifically, the ones you are trying to disregard. It is a minority. A very small group at that. So why are you so obsessed with these children? The locker rooms they're going into, the bathrooms they're going into, their genitals, well, and how they want to grow up to live. Maybe you need to be investigated where it comes to children. I'm sure losing 18 students a year to cyber school is a big financial hit on you. You keep this policy and you probably lose more to bullying. Sorry. Another subject is that I was a victim and I left the school because nobody cared. I suffered, but did the school board suffer? Did the principal suffer? No, they don't see it. They don't care. They don't want to listen either. But one day, something terrible is going to happen and they will regret not paying attention to the children's screams. That's what happens when it's too late, out of sight, out of mind. Isn't that what they say? These are new times. This is a new era. You care more about confirmation bias and your own emotional satisfaction, confirming your personal agendas against kids that don't fit your standards. We don't need that in the school board. We need people that care about all of the children, improving their lives, making them happier, and fixing problems. That's what governing and politics is about, being selfless and not selfish.
My name's Patricia Laurie, and I'm a resident of Berwick.
We have nobody else.
If nobody else on the sorry. Raven Herring, Berwick, once again, I would like to remind you about what I said last time. Okay? For anybody who doesn't know, I was the kid that brought up rape threats. Okay? And I did have the names with me, and I still do. If you would actually care, I have the names on hand. And if you don't care that well, then you can go ask my brother. Okay? And if you know what? You can ask me about that, because I'm not getting about that. But I would like to bring up that God is, theologically non-binary. Like, there is no he. It doesn't go by he or she. But you know what? We do call them a he, because that is preferred. I would also like to bring it up that Jesus Christ did not reproduce, so we could assume that he's asexual, which again, LGBTQIA+. So even if you are preaching from a Bible and putting Bible references straight into policies, which is what it seems like, that is still off-brand and not actually following the Bible itself.
Public policy.
Separation of church and state. Thank you.
Christina Culver, once again from Salem Township. I find it so interesting that these policies which impact our school district, our students so significantly and clearly is controversial, were discussed in such a robust way by this board and of course voted on using the consent agenda vote. Anyway, I came prepared. I knew this would happen, so here's the letter that I wrote that I will be turning to the district office tomorrow. To whom it may concern. As the board has now passed Policy 216, parents are now required to submit in writing and in person a letter that states what names and pronouns the staff of the Berwick School District can call our child. As I and my spouse think that my child's civil rights should be protected and that our child has a basic human right in making this decision themselves, we hereby give the school staff permission to use whatever name our child so desires. We leave this to our child, whether they want to go by Isabella or Bella or Bob or Boba or Beelzebub. As for pronouns, we ask that you again allow our child to pick the pronouns, as our child is the expert on their gender identity, not us. Therefore, you can ask our child, and our child will let you know what pronouns to use. Furthermore, we allow our child to change their name and pronouns as much as they want, yearly, monthly, daily, hourly, should he, she, they decide. You see, we love our child unconditionally, and we will let them change their name and pronouns 1,000,000 times so that I never have to write his, her, or their obituary. Sincerely, Travis and Christina Culver.